Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Writers Infusion. I'm your host, Susan. I'm here with the team, Jen, Ed, and Julie. Dave is off screen, so he'll critique separately. And today we're here with Katie Hurwitz from Massachusetts. We're really excited to hear your story submission. So Katie's going to read for us today, and then we'll critique.
So this piece is called Epoch of Belief. I wrote it 2 years ago when I was a sophomore, and it's about 8,000 words altogether, but this is a 5-page excerpt from it. When I saw the innocent visages of the infants, life flashed before my eyes. The mother of the newborns, lying exasperated in her bed, told me without any hesitation to do the unbearable. Stifling in the thin air, I tentatively picked up the girl to be carried outside. Her black fuzz of hair seemed so soft, her toes so small, and her eyes barely open. The baby's skin was white as the downy clouds leading to heaven above, with the complexion of an angel's pureness. I delivered these 2 babies, the girl and her brother. Why should only the boy live, so that the horrible assignment to kill the girl was passed on to me, the nurse? It was my job to bring life, not take it away. I could not take the pressure any longer. If I killed the baby, then a part of myself would have the same fate. Thus, I did what was necessary. Outside the hospital, this frigid December day accommodated a blanket of snow. The untouched ground was a platform for my evidential footsteps. But even so, my feet, not feeling like my own, led me past the bubbling river. This peaceful body of water would be where the girl was to be left to die without any nourishment. She needed to escape to somewhere far away from here, a place without any rules regarding how many children should be in a family. Ultimately, we are all made in God's image. Would God create a child just to have it die within a few months of birth? This child will never be deprived from seeing the world and all the beauty it holds. But first, I needed to leave, to flee China and go to America, where dreams can become reality. America was the ultimate location to raise my new daughter, Min. I performed the sign of the cross, with my cold fingers marking by a beloved Trinity, asking God to watch over us for safety on a difficult expedition. My reluctancy to separate the twins held me back from walking any farther. But within the commotion of the moment, the unfortunate solution of fleeing was the only way to keep her alive. Kissing Min's small head, I ended my prayer and began our journey. Sneaking out of China was one of the most difficult moments of my life. Looking down at the baby wrapped in my arms reminded me of the goodness the world still holds, in which case I did everything possible to come to America without suspicion. We rode together on a train to the airport. The warm air inside the train made me feel safe as we escaped the cold outside. In retrospect, the cold heated up the train to make it push forward, just as my fervor for Min is the force getting us to America. Looking out of the window, everything was a blur, as if every event in my life passed right before my eyes, but I could no longer decipher them any longer. It did not matter anymore what went on in my past. Its ambiguity was a sign that my future would be clear in America. Sitting on the black cushioned seat, hugging Min for my life, we were going too fast to turn back. Looking out of the window would not help me, as all I had to do was close my eyes and believe that everything would work out. I had 7 stops to go before getting to the terminal. At the 3rd stop, I continued to close my eyes, almost to the point of sleep. When opening my eyes, I was shocked to see that I was not alone with Min. A man sat next to me solemnly. I was not aware of him being there, or even how long he was there. This man could have been there for several minutes, yet he had not said a word, perhaps recognizing my disquieting mood. As our journey went on, I turned to the man with the white scarf and found out his name was Mr. Joe. He shook my hand firmly, which counted to me as a sign that he could be trusted. He seemed like a man of business. We carried out a conversation until the 7th stop, in which I learned that he was fleeing from China too, for reasons unknown to me. At these risky times like these, we needed to be clever and quick in order to achieve our ultimate goal of liberation. Mr. Joe and I decided to team up since we strive for the same result, the opportunity for freedom in America. Our plan would earn me a spot in America as long as we worked together with deception. In order to board the plane, I had to state my name. I declared that my last name was Joe and the stranger was my husband. Therefore, Min would be our child. I regretted lying, but for a minute, the picture of a steady family in my mind warmed my heart despite it all being an illusion. A few hours ago, I was simply a submissive nurse following orders to live. But just a short amount of time later, here I was, breaking my moral standards of telling the truth in order to live. I was lonely before, but now I had a family, no matter how contrived it was. Our shared desperation to get to America made it look like we connected as an actual family. Therefore, the lie was believed. We were off to America, where I kept my last name as Joe, despite never seeing the man after our arrival. We parted ways, grateful for the power that stemmed from a seemingly innocuous human connection. Knowing the English language from studying as a child and getting a green card right away, I forced myself to feel like I had never been in China in the first place. In spite of my beliefs, this simply was a lie. Upon arriving in America, my fear of the Chinese government learning about my crime held back the development of a perfect relationship between myself and Min. It was my dream to be a united team with Min and share all the same qualities, as if we were one person. However, her innocence was unfeigned, whereas mine had evanesced over time. As the days went by, I remained cautious and quiet, resorting to my pastime making rosaries. Each bead represented a different prayer, all connected by a golden thread like we all as human beings are connected to God. The paramount piece was a cross itself. Something so small as a cross on a rosary can be the mighty reason why everyone is still alive today. I have such great respect for a martyr such as Jesus Christ, selflessly giving up his life because of his unconditional love for mankind. As for Min, childhood vibrancy filled her with an abiding joy and goodness. Her eyes remained quite small throughout youth, limiting her view of the world so that she only saw beauty. Min learned how to walk at 7 months old. Skipping the typical baby style of crawling before walking, I assisted Min with standing up until she was capable of walking on her own. Each footstep reverberated through our small house. Her steps were slightly precarious at first, and indicating the sense of fear that she would fall. This made my body tremble, as my daughter was walking without guidance, and nothing could be done to prevent her from falling. In a way, I empathized with Min at that moment. I too had that fear instilled within myself. Despite the glorious moments that come up in life, this terror resonated in my soul ever since the day when I decided to flee China. Unlike my experience with fear, Min's determination to walk eliminated the imbalance in her steps and made way for the steadiness as she walked throughout our house. Her face lit up as she looked at me with the knowledge that she could independently complete a task. Min walked in my direction, raising arms, motioning for me to lift her up. Smiling wide with dimples raising up to her small eyes, she let out a laugh of relief. Even with Min in my arms, the magic of that moment was a mere distraction for the incessant fear and guilt engraved into the pavement of my soul. Our assimilation into America seemed seamless for my daughter, due to her peers anglicizing Min to Minnie. She had no past in China that she could remember, so coming to America started off as a clean slate for her. She could live free from any worries from her real life. However, for me, my only way to conform to American ideals was due to the fact that Christianity was the dominant force in my life, just as it was for most of the Western world. This had made me an outcast in my homeland of China, and ironically let me fit into such a foreign country.
I don't have any more.
Oh,
That's
four,
where
four.
I was left off.
Yeah, we stopped at 4. I don't know
Oh,
why.
sorry.
Do you want to? How many more pages do you have?
This is the last one.
So why don't you keep
Yeah, go
reading?
ahead.
We'll just
Please,
listen.
please.
Back in China, practicing religion was said to be free for everyone, but in my experience, that was the furthest from the truth. The state only recognized the major religions. I did not want to deal with potentially being interrogated for being a Christian. Religion for me was private, only in my thoughts, only practiced through prayer. I did not own rosary beads or a Bible or attend Mass like they did in America. Being Christian was introduced to me purely by stories. During my life in China, God and I were the only ones who knew of my Catholicism. Now that we came to America, I could embrace my religion. The commencement of this being known to the public was on the day of Min's christening. The priest dipped her into the bowl of holy water, instilling her with purity that I prayed would stay with her forever. We were running a marathon together, with each step as a day, each block as a week, and each mile as a year. Years felt like days as they went by, as Min grew from a small bundle in my arms into a joyous child. Time was fleeting, and we could do nothing but try to make it last. Min was devoted to studies in school, as her love for learning was immense, as the galaxies spreading far beyond the earth. Once done with the school day, she would come home to lying on the ground, simply viewing the sky. Looking out of the bay window while working on my rosaries, the sight of the child enthralled by nature made my heart feel full. The sun would make her seem radiant, giving warmth like a flaming fireplace on a cold day. She would sniff the air and exhale with the satisfaction of whisking in the sweet smell of the white wisteria tree canopying above her. Each breath she took in infused her lungs with the fresh air.
Thank you. Wow.
I appreciate that additional page for the question about her religion and its meaning to her, and that
Yeah. Was
certainly
that
fleshes it
submitted?
out.
I
That
don't know
brings
why
it
I
up.
didn't copy it in.
I think I submitted just,
Oh, okay. Oh, that was nice. That was actually good to hear that.
Yeah, it's
It is-
very helpful.
Yeah, I can't believe you wrote that as a sophomore. That's great. That's amazing.
Thank you.
It's impressive.
What prompted you to write this?
It just came up, I don't remember exactly, but I read A Tale of Two Cities freshman year, and I thought it would be cool to explore the idea of an allegory. I don't know if it completely translated into an allegory, but I was inspired by A Tale of Two Cities and putting a twist on it. So Lucy Minette would be Min, and different characters come up along the way.
Yeah. Did you really enjoy A Tale of Two Cities, or is it
I liked it.
okay? Yeah.
Since then, I've read more books, and it's not my favorite book, but I thought it was an interesting plot.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering. And when is this supposed to take place?
In the 1970s.
Okay.
We wondered that. If you could indicate that, it'd be helpful.
Okay. And this was just something you did? It wasn't an assignment? Or what?
No, actually, the Career Writing Club that I'm in started when I was a sophomore, so I thought I'd start writing my first short story. I've written when I was little, but my first official short story.
Okay.
For them to look over.
That's great. So I think your writing is very beautiful. And you would definitely get a feel for this, this woman, this nurse, and what she's going through, and how much this baby means to her, and also how she's changed. And coming from China and going to the U.S., I thought that was really great. I really saw this as almost like an outline for a whole book. So as an example, when the very first thing that she talks about was she sees the baby and she wants to take the baby. So that alone could be its own long scene.
Yeah.
What's happening? What's the mother saying? What is she saying back to the mother? What is she thinking? You have some of that, what is she thinking? So that's good. That can be woven right into that scene. And then what is really the motivation for her, in particular, wanting to take that much of a chance to leave?
And why this baby?
Katie, we're going to
And
share all
right,
our
and why
notes
this
with you, so
baby,
you don't have to
right.
scramble frantically. We want you to know that.
Yeah.
Everything we say, we'll share with you, I promise. All of our notes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, our notes too, and plus you'll be able to watch the show, so you don't have to remember everything, but you can obviously write down whatever you want. So if you think about that whole first thing as a long scene, where what's motivating her, why, as Jen just said, why this baby and not another baby? Because if she's a nurse, she's
She's
delivering.
seen this before, right?
Right. So what's motivating her this time to decide to make a break? And then if I get past, and then of course it's the back and forth, every step, what is happening? Because this is huge. She's escaping with this baby, and we want to know what is happening every step of the way.
Yes.
What happens? How does she even get to the train station with the baby? Does she
Right.
need identification for the
Yep.
baby?
Yes.
How does she
All
have
the
the
And
danger.
herself.
how
her
does she have
papers.
money for the tickets? How does she have diapers for the baby? How is she going to feed the baby? Because usually, they might breastfeed. So how does she How does she think about that? And then she gets on the train and she meets up with this man, and in this society where there might be a lot of mistrust, why does she trust him so quickly? Wouldn't she be like, oh, maybe he's a secret agent and he's just trying to nail me the second that I let on that I'm trying to escape? Why wouldn't she be worried? Or maybe she is worried. So this is all like something you can think about if you ever wanted to go anywhere with this, about making all these really long scenes, because I would want to know every single detail along the way. How does she get from one place to the next?
That's what I felt. I felt like this is a terrific plot. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
it's very
Yes.
gripping. It's such an adventure, and you have such a wonderful main character who is brave and who has, you know, these moral concepts, and is willing to risk a great deal in order to save this child. It's a terrific story. And I agree with Sue that I view this as it's kind of like a synopsis of a plot, rather than the entire. Rather than showing us the whole story, it's the difference between, you know, if you see a movie, you see everything that happens. If somebody asks you, what was the movie about, you'll explain it in 3 sentences,
Right.
which doesn't really capture everything that it was. And that's what I feel about this. I feel like this can be expanded so much to
A whole
to
novel.
give detail. Yeah, I mean, just the first few lines, that's a scene in itself. She's working in the hospital. You know, the mother to be is there.
What
you know,
happens if
the
she has a baby
labor,
girl?
the father might be there.
Yeah.
You know, they're excited when the first child comes, and then a second child, and what does that mean? You know,
Or she
like that
knows
would
what it
change.
means,
Right,
right?
did they even
Maybe-
know it was
right.
twins, or
You might not
Right.
know.
even know.
That might be a surprise.
Right,
you
and
know?
then when they realize it's a girl,
then
she
a
knows what
shock.
could be, right?
You know, compared with probably the joy of the first child that is born. And but you see what I'm saying? How like this can be expanded, like the details of, if you just, I feel like sometimes I say to people, take your time. Take your time. Tell the story step by step. What happens?
Yeah.
Who's there? What do they say? What do they do? And then when that scene's done, then there's the next scene. What comes after that? And that's what I feel like here. It's like you have, this outline of a terrific story here.
And there's so much
And I
to
wanna see
explore
more.
too, because just the whole concept of what was going on in China for so many years, and of course now it's turned
Right.
into a huge mess because of
Right.
what they did. But the whole concept of the girl, not getting rid of the girls and only having one child and the boy being, and you can bring all that into this. And even how it's I guess if it takes place in the 70s, you wouldn't see the long-term ramifications, but she
No.
could, I don't even know if anyone even thought of what the long-term ramifications could be,
No,
right?
sure
They're like 70 million women short. I mean, women are being kidnapped and brought to other parts of China who already have families because other men can't find women. So now they're kidnapping them from their families
Wow.
and bringing them to other parts.
crazy.
This is
Wow.
going on or
Mhm.
was going on. So there's so much that you can bring into this
Yeah.
that's so fascinating.
Yeah.
With, as Ed said, a really nice character.
To dovetail what Sue and Ed were saying, I'd love to know about the mother's reaction. What are her emotions? Is she being dutiful to the government, or does she really feel, oh, I'm going to lose a child and this nurse is obligated to take her
I
away?
wrote that too.
And I love that she wants to save Min, but I agree we need details of how she boarded that train, how she paid for it, and then what her life is like in the U.S. There's so much to flesh out there.
How'd she buy a
With whom
house,
does she live?
right?
What is she doing for work? And if she is working, because you said the beading of rosary bead making was a pastime, who's watching the child while she's working? What does she have friends? And did she say goodbye to loved ones, to family, to friends, to coworkers?
How'd she get a job,
China,
right? Did
how
she
did
have
she
to
get
go
a
back for
job?
her
Yes.
education? Like, this can all be
So this isn't to point out
Chapters.
flaws you have. It's just to prompt you to seek more and write more
Yeah.
details,
More
because you have
possibilities.
Right.
this has such promise, and the one-child policy is fascinating and
It is.
scary in the same thought.
Yeah.
I think that I agree with what everyone said. I think that the good news is that we want more of the story. The bad news is that you wanted to write a novella.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I don't think it's a novella. I think it's a novel.
So we can just edit out the ELLA.
Yeah,
Right.
and you know, and it's your story, right? So you can kind of ignore everything that we're saying.
Sorry, the LA.
But
Go ahead.
you want to have, there's so much opportunity here for tension and conflict, and to have the reader sweat it out and to root for this character. And to Ed's point about writing it as a scene, like, put us in that delivery room. Because that's a horrific situation to be in.
Yeah.
And when you're writing a scene, you want to think, okay, what's at stake? What decision does she have to make? Based on that decision, what's going to happen next?
Right.
And every even on the train, like, she must be looking over her shoulder. Like, I just
Every
kidnapped
second.
this baby. Like, are they looking for me? Like, I don't know. Was she supposed to bring back a dead baby girl? Like, was she supposed to drown the
I
baby
know.
in the river and then bring the body back, or was the baby just meant to be left by the river? And then what happened? Like, did people go around picking up dead baby girl? Like this. There's so much horribleness, but I don't want to say fascinating is not the right word, because it's so horrible, but the tension and the conflict would just be a page turner.
Yeah.
You know, just the scene on the train, and then the airport. She's at the
Yes.
airport, and then like it was almost like it was too easy. Like, I want to sweat it out. I want to.
I want to know how old she is too.
I want to.
Like,
Right,
what's her
is this the
experience?
first time
Yeah.
that she's
Yeah.
been
That's a
asked
good point.
to
Yeah.
commit this horrible crime? If she's a nurse, this can't be the first baby girl that she's delivered. Has she had
Right.
to do it in the past? And if so, why this baby?
Although
you
it
know,
sounds like it's never happened before, but then that would be,
Well, maybe-
maybe this is the first time, maybe she just became a nurse, right? And this is the first time she's had to deal with it.
And what's she leaving? She must have. You're saying here that she was
Family.
lonely, so she kind of left pretty easily. But is she leaving behind parents and siblings?
Right. And again, how does she get the money to leave, and all the little details that come up when you're writing a story.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's 4 of us here are parents. That baby's awfully quiet. You want me to cry a bit. I mean, she doesn't have to have a
That
voice.
didn't even occur to me.
But
Yeah.
she
Well behaved.
yeah, may need it. I'm saying that with levity.
Well, I
I'm
mean,
not
I know
faulting
someone
you.
who adopted, years ago, they adopted their 2 girls from China. And she said that when they brought the first girl home, the baby, that she had diarrhea for like 24 straight hours on the plane, and what it was like dealing with that.
Yeah.
And so there, I know that sounds
Don't
gross.
go into too much
It's
detail on
gross.
that.
But I'm just saying that there are so many different things that can happen that
Yes.
can
Different
affect the
aspects.
tension
Yes.
Right.
and what she has to deal with that you bring into the story. And that might sound gross, but you read it, you're like, oh gosh, someone's reacting, even if it's
Right.
gross.
And
And
you-
does she just meld into motherhood, or does she doubt what she's doing? Oh my
Or
gosh,
does she
what
have
did I
10
do?
siblings and she really
Right.
knows what
So-
she's
Yeah.
doing, right?
What do you
Yeah,
say?
I mean,
But again, that's the motivation.
I was going to say that. I mean, it's obvious that you have a terrific imagination
Yes,
to
you're
come
here.
up with this. So,
Yeah.
I feel like you could,
We all want you to write the whole thing.
right.
You've been quiet. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thank you so much for all this feedback. I definitely want to continue it into a longer story.
Good.
And I was actually reading it today to refresh my memory because I wrote it a while ago. And I think I've improved as a writer these past 2 years. And I definitely, once I had the time to, I'll definitely
Yeah.
continue it. She does get a job as a nurse at the at Min's school, so I can expand upon that too.
Yeah, that's good.
And then, like, does Min ever find out, like, that this isn't her biological
Yes.
mother? Like, there's tension there too.
Yeah.
Yes, that's where the conflict.
There's
Oh.
so
Uh-huh.
much.
Yeah, that's right.
You have
Yeah.
so much here that's
Potential. Mhm.
fascinating.
Mhm.
So don't be afraid to dig deeper and really flesh that out. And, like, again, you have so much opportunity here. Everything that you mentioned here is opportunity to create tension and conflict that will keep a reader completely engaged.
Oh, yeah.
So when you were looking at this again today, did you have like based on the experience you've had now with writing for the last 2 years and being in a writer's group, which gives you so much more
Perspective. yeah.
perspective, did you already have ideas on what you wanted to do?
I think I noticed mostly my sentence structure. I I took AP Lang last year and I learned my sentence patterns. I think I had a lot of simple sentences, so I would want to make them more complex and more compelling. So for the syntax, that, but I don't know. I think I want to make it as if the reader is there instead of just the narrator telling you what happened.
Right, the show don't tell.
Right.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
That's great.
Thank you.
And I think that it's really healthy to take time away from a story because you do
Yes.
view it with fresh eyes
Yep.
when you see
Yeah.
it again.
Yep.
So
Different point of
that's
view.
advantageous.
Yep.
Now, and over the last couple of years, have you been writing more short stories, or what do you like to write?
I mainly write poetry. Recently, I've written some memoirs for college essays, but the more I write them, the more I want to write more. I have written recently some flash fiction because I have a tendency to write and keep on writing, but I wanted to test, can I tell a whole story in 500 words?
Oh,
It's a
good.
challenge.
Yeah.
It
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
That's actually good too, because lots of times stories can get what we might call flowery when you really just need to tell the story. It doesn't have to be fancy. You just want to tell the story and keep the readers with you. So to do something like flash fiction would force you to do that.
It's a good skill.
It is. Just lost my train of thought on something else I wanted
I
to
didn't
say.
ask this in writing, but I'm curious, what does Min mean? What does it translate to? Is it a meaningful name?
Yeah, I think it meant wisdom.
Ah, and is it a name she gives the baby, or is it a name the mother gave the baby?
She gives the baby.
Ah, excellent.
Do you have any other questions for us before we wrap up the show?
How would you suggest starting? So I'd start with a hospital scene probably,
I
Oh,
think
that's
so.
powerful.
Yep.
Yes.
and then this could probably be a few pages in where I start now, have a more emphatic beginning.
You know what? The way you started it, and you start in the hospital.
Yeah.
So we all think that's the place to start.
Yeah.
It's just that instead of
Start in
being
the
a
right place.
paragraph, you're talking about 20
Right.
pages of material.
It really is.
I mean,
yeah.
as if you were in the hospital and you think about what am I seeing and who am I interacting with and what am I thinking, and if you think about all that, then it's just just like other stories that you've read where it's
Yeah.
just play by play on every single step.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff pulls at the heartstrings. Like, does the mother even look at the baby girl?
Right.
Right.
And then how
right.
does that affect the nurse? Like, I can't believe this mother doesn't even seem to care about her baby and just says, see you later, right away.
I'm thinking of Chris Bojellian and midwives. I mean, you don't want to get too graphic, but you certainly want to have the mother in the room. The nurse is doing her duty. Are there other nurses? Is there a doctor? What is happening?
Right.
Vaguely, not
because
in
all
great
these
detail.
people are part of this machine
Yes, yes.
that's getting rid of this baby, really, right?
Mhm.
They're all part of it.
Yeah.
Right, and then does the mother clutch and cuddle and coddle
Doesn't
the
sound
boy?
like it.
Does the mother want
Oh,
to?
the boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, to favor the boy. Does the father want to favor the boy?
Yeah,
Mm.
that's true.
Yeah. Those are decisions.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
so all this to think about, the back and forth.
It's
If
your
you want to
world.
try to
Yeah.
write, if you do that and you want to write it a few pages and then submit it to us, even if we look at it offline, I'd be certainly
Yeah.
very
Oh, we'd
happy
love
to do
to.
that
Mhm.
Sure.
That'd be
and just
great.
give you some
Thank you.
feedback. Yeah. We have to wrap this up
Yeah.
for
And then, yeah,
the
but just
official
quickly, you
show.
can still weave in the Catholicism in there as well, within each scene as well, because that seemed to be an important theme for you in this as well that we didn't get a chance to touch
Faith,
upon.
That's
but-
true.
Mhm.
Yeah, because you want to write your truth, right? What's
Right.
important to you. This is your story.
Well, there's a ton like "Thou shalt not kill," "Thou shalt not covet." There's
Oh,
a
absolutely
ton
guides our
of,
choices. Mhm.
Your ability to weave in the religious
Right.
aspect
And
of the story.
that's where she's coming from. I mean, we don't know anything about her when this starts.
Right, so
But-
maybe all that comes
but
in.
learning about,
Right.
some aspects
and
of her
worshiping
like
in
that.
secret, that there's tension there
Right.
too.
Right, so all this
Exactly.
can be something that she's thinking about when she's thinking about, I'm going to save this baby.
Mhm.
So right up front, you can bring that into it.
Yeah.
Or even when she leaves the hospital with the baby, she might go home first. And there might be reminders there. What book is she taking? Does she talk with someone at home?
Right.
What does she think about?
Yeah,
Which would tell us a lot about her background. also.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah, the
Anyway,
whole step by step.
Just- yeah.
Yeah, we want a novel. Sorry.
That's right. I'm just
We
going
want
to
a
wrap up
movie.
the show and then we can continue to talk afterwards, okay? So thank you so much for coming in today. It was
Thank
so nice
you.
meeting you and reading
Yes.
this,
Great.
talking about
Terrific.
your story. Thank you everyone else for joining us for this episode of Writers Infusion. We will see you next time. Keep